The rain had just started, misting the cracked windows of the old diner at the edge of town. Inside, the scent of fried food mingled with the sharp tang of gasoline from the motorcycles parked outside. A group of bikers laughed loudly at one of their own jokes, the sound echoing off the chipped walls. Their leather jackets were worn, patched, and smelled faintly of smoke and metal, the kind of smell that seemed to announce danger before anyone could even see it. The leader, a towering man with a scar slashing across his cheek, sat at the center of the table, sipping slowly from a chipped mug of coffee, eyes scanning the room with quiet authority. Outside, the rain began to pour harder, drumming against the tin roof in a relentless rhythm. The diner's door creaked open, letting in a sudden gust of cold wind that carried more than just moisture. It brought a tiny, fragile figure into the center of their world. A boy, no older than 7, stood frozen in the doorway. His clothes were torn, streaked with mud and grime. His small hands trembled as they clutched a backpack that had seen better days. The laughter from the bikers died instantly. Even the ones in the back, who often ignored anything smaller than a fully grown man, instinctively leaned forward. The boy's voice, barely audible over the rain, cut through the din. They took my sister," he whispered, his words trembling but clear. The room seemed to hold its breath. The leader slammed his mug down, making the floor vibrate. Silence followed, thick and tense. The boy's eyes darted around the room, meeting every face with raw fear and pleading, as if begging for someone to believe him. No one spoke. No one moved. Not yet. Finally, the leader stepped forward, his boots heavy on the wooden floor, and crouched to meet the boy at eye level. "Who did this?" His voice was low, steady, but every syllable carried a weight that made the room hush even further. The boy swallowed hard, his lower lip quivering. "Men in a black van. They took her toward the old quarry," he said, words tumbling out in a rush, almost too fast for him to keep up. The bikers exchanged glances, the kind that didn't need words. The scarred leader's jaw tightened. One of the younger riders cracked his knuckles, another shifted a gun in its holster beneath his jacket. The sense of danger was instantaneous, palpable, like electricity in the air. This wasn't the first time someone had messed with a kid in their town, and the silent rule was simple: cross the innocent, and the reckoning was swift and absolute. The boy's small shoulders shook as he lowered his gaze. He was terrified, but in that moment, among the rumble of motorcycles and hardened faces, he felt a flicker of hope. The leader placed a large hand gently on his shoulder. "You stay here," he said softly, almost fatherly, "we'll get her back." There was no hesitation in his tone, no question of what would happen next. The boy nodded, barely able to speak. Outside, the rain continued to pour, washing the streets in gray. Inside the diner, a group of bikers who were more used to chaos than care were suddenly united by a single mission. Engines would roar again, tires would slice through puddles, and no one who had hurt that little girl would escape. Not a single one. The boy, trembling but clinging to the promise in the scarred man's eyes, knew for the first time that someone would fight for him and his sister. The rain had turned the highways into glistening ribbons of water, reflecting the erratic glare of the bikers' headlights. The engines roared like a chorus of wild beasts, slicing through the darkness as if the night itself dared to resist them. The boy clung tightly to the leather jacket of the scarred leader, his knuckles white, heart hammering in time with the thrum of the motorcycles. Every bump in the road made him flinch, but the man's voice, low and steady, cut through the chaos. "We'll find her, kid. I promise," he said, his tone like a lifeline in the storm. They rode in silence, broken only by the roar of engines and the patter of rain. Each biker knew the stakes. This wasn't a game, and there was no room for mistakes. The quarry lay several miles away, an abandoned stretch of land riddled with crumbling warehouses, jagged rocks, and the shadows of trees twisted like gnarled fingers. The boy's mind raced with images of his sister trapped, crying, frightened. The leader glanced back at him once, catching the fear in his wide eyes. "Hold on," he muttered. "We're almost there." When they reached the outskirts, the bikers spread out with practiced precision. They moved like predators, silent and deadly, scanning the shadows for the slightest hint of movement. One biker spotted fresh tire tracks leading toward a rusted gate, mud still clinging to the grooves of the tires. Another pointed to a faint, flickering light in a derelict building ahead. The leader's hand rose in a silent signal, and they advanced, boots silent against wet gravel. The boy followed, clutching his sister's name on his lips. The door to the building creaked under the leader's kick. Inside, two men argued beside a chair, their voices harsh, unaware of the approaching storm. A young girl, no older than 10, was tied tightly, her small frame shaking. When she caught sight of the boy, her eyes widened, hope and fear colliding in a single glance. The leader didn't hesitate. He lunged forward, swinging a heavy chain with precision, the first man crumpling to the floor before he could react. Another biker knocked the second man off balance, sending him sprawling into a stack of crates. Chaos erupted. Chains clanged, boots slammed against bodies, and the smell of fear mixed with damp wood and oil. In less than a minute, the threat was neutralized. The boy ran to his sister, wrapping her small body in his arms, rocking her back and forth as tears streamed down both of their faces. I thought they'd never come," she whispered, her voice trembling. The leader placed a firm hand on the boy's shoulder. "Never," he said. "We always come." The bikers, soaked and muddy, gave a collective nod. They had faced danger before, but the innocence in those children's eyes made every bruise, every cut, and every soaked minute worth it. Outside, the rain had eased, leaving behind a mist that clung to the rocks and metal. The boy held his sister tightly, the leather jacket enveloping them like a shield. For the first time since the nightmare began, there was a flicker of safety, a sense that the storm had passed, at least for now. But the bikers knew better. This night was just the beginning of ensuring the children would never face such terror again. By the time they returned to the diner, the first hints of dawn were breaking through the heavy clouds, painting the wet streets in pale shades of pink and gold. The engines had slowed, now just a low hum, as the bikers rolled to a stop outside the familiar neon sign that flickered weakly above the entrance. The rain had left the asphalt glistening, and the scent of wet earth mixed with exhaust and leather. The boy stepped down from the leader's bike, still clutching his sister tightly, her small hands buried in the folds of his jacket. Inside, the diner was quiet, almost eerily so, compared to the chaos from the previous night. The bikers, though covered in mud and streaked with rain, moved with a calm purpose. They guided the children to a corner booth, wrapping the little girl in a leather jacket 3 sizes too large. She shivered slightly but didn't protest. The boy sat beside her, brushing mud from her hair, his hands shaking less now that she was safe. For the first time, there was a fragile sense of peace in the room. The leader crouched in front of them, his scarred face softer than it had ever been. "You two got someone we can call?" he asked gently, the roughness in his voice tempered with concern. The boy shook his head, his eyes filling with tears he refused to shed until he knew they were truly safe. "Our parents, they're gone," he admitted in a small, broken voice. The room fell silent. Even the other bikers, who had fought countless battles and broken more bones than most could count, felt the weight of that moment. A woman from the crew, her crimson bandana soaked from the rain, knelt beside the children. Her voice was soft, almost hesitant. "Then you ride with us till you've got a home," she said, and the sincerity in her tone was unmistakable. The little girl looked up, her tears starting to dry as she tried to understand. "Are you the good guys?" she whispered. The leader smiled faintly, a shadow of a grin crossing his rugged features. "We're not the good guys, sweetheart, but we do good things when it counts." The boy exhaled, a deep, trembling breath, letting the tension of the past night slip from his shoulders. His sister leaned against him, and for a moment, everything seemed like it could be okay. Around them, the bikers began quietly preparing to leave, checking engines, cleaning mud from their boots, and sharing silent nods. There was no grand celebration, no applause, just the quiet acknowledgement that a job had been done, and lives had been saved. As dawn fully broke, the neon sign buzzed faintly, illuminating the children's faces. The leader helped them to their feet, and together they stepped outside into the crisp morning air. Engines roared to life, filling the streets with a powerful rhythm that seemed to chase away the darkness. The boy and his sister climbed onto the bikes, their hearts racing with fear, excitement, and a sense of belonging they hadn't known in years. With the wind in their hair and the open road ahead, the children felt, for the first time, that safety and family could exist in the unlikeliest of places. The bikers led the way, a protective pack bound not by blood, but by choice, loyalty, and an unspoken promise. No one would ever take them again. And as they disappeared down the road, the sun rising behind them, the town seemed a little less dark, a little more hopeful, because sometimes, heroes come in the roughest, most unexpected forms.